Well, hello there. This is your friendly tarot reading rapper slash poet Bravo. And today we are doing a review of the Zombie Tarot. And so here we see the back of the deck here. And so this deck, it is a very interesting deck. It is not necessarily the best deck for reading. You can definitely read with it. It won't necessarily give the most positive readings, being a zombie tarot and all. And so I've had this deck for a few years. I'm going through a series where I'm reviewing some of the decks that I have, and I have a lot of experience with some of them, including this one. Unfortunately, I don't have the box with me or the booklet. It is in storage right now, but the box is really nice, a matte kind of finish on the booklet and the box, and the 1950s style kind of artwork. One thing about this deck, it is completely chopped together out of 1950s pulp artwork, and it is made into a story of the zombies versus humans, and eventually coming together to form a new society. So if you were to lay out all of the cards, not necessarily in order, you would see a whole story of the zombie uprising, the zombies fighting with humans, the humans taking control of the zombies, zombies eating lots of humans, all that good stuff like a zombie movie or a TV show. And then we see that they are coming together and becoming one, and they're learning to live with each other. So what I've figured out just by using this deck, and it is kind of obvious once you look at the iconography and the archetypes here, is that the zombies represent the unconscious mind. The zombies represent all of these non-thinking drives, and even some of the humans too, of following society, acting out of fear, acting out of selfishness. That's what you'll find by looking at these cards, is that the zombies are just as human as some of the humans, and you'll figure out vice versa. Some of the humans are literally, there's a Seven of Swords where the woman is kicking her husband to the zombie so she can survive. That's the very conniving Seven of Sabres, which is one of my identifier cards, which has come up for me a lot in the past. So again, this deck is not the best for reading, but it is a very interesting one to work with. I have actually done a reading for somebody with diabetes, and it looked like it was possible that he could lose limbs. So yeah, it is a very dark and twisted deck, and one of my kind of guides, mentors, when I showed it to him, he's a a long-term tarot person, he pretty much told me, yeah, you could go ahead and burn this deck. But I think a little more highly of it than that. It's got some really positive things about it, but at the same time, it's not the best to choose as your main deck or one of your main decks for reading. It is more like an art piece. It is very interesting and beautiful. It reminds me a bit of the Fallout games and that kind of energy of the 1950s nostalgia, kind of seen through a modern cynical edge. And the artwork is beautiful in the sense of they've really captured that feel of the 1950s through shopping together and collaging together all of this old 1950s artwork, which you can't really fake that kind of stuff. So I wanted to go through real quickly some of my favorite cards. Here we go is the Ace of Wands. And the aces are some of my favorite, just the seed cards. I'm just constantly a person of restarting. So one of the reasons I picked this one is I actually did a reading for my mom, and it was before she got hip surgery, and literally it was this bone right here, right in the middle, the cross of the Celtic cross, that was in her reading. So that was just perfect right there. And so we have all the classic suits, but instead of coins, we have the hazards. And so the hazards are just different problems and stuff that people are going through. And it's really a little bit more like swords than you would be used to with the coins. And you can check out my channel. I have at least one reading done with this deck for Halloween. Today is actually Halloween, so happy Halloween if you're watching today. And so then, another one of my favorites, this is the Fool. This reminds me of the beginning of Night of the Living Dead. So we see the Fool here is ready for his adventure. He doesn't even seem to realize that the zombie apocalypse has begun. We see him just walking there. Now here's the number one that comes after the Fool, the Magician. This is kind of the bumbling scientist. And one thing you'll notice is there's almost like a comic book action to the cards, as you'll see like in these little thought bubbles. That, to me, the way I understand this bumbling scientist is he's the one who accidentally created the zombie virus. So we have the Magician, card number one there. And then so I like this number 18, the Moon. It just really captures that feel of like a Night of the Living Dead style movie. And we see the bird there holding out the key, which reminds me a bit of the Hierophant from the Wild Unknown deck. We see that big beautiful moon up there, and the woman just asleep, kind of escaping from the hellish zombie outbreak, but just that calm, chaotic energy. And that's what's so interesting about the Moon card, is it represents this calm, chaotic energy of this silent kind of creeping. And so I think this really embodies the Moon card very well. So here's another one I like. This is number 20 of Judgment here. So one thing, you can see the little thought bubbles there of the action happening of somebody launching the nuclear warhead. I really like some of the archetypes of a storyline that are captured, and especially the major arcana in this deck are my favorite. The court cards are really nice, and some of the pip cards are nice too. Kind of gives a oracle deck feel to the meaning of some of them. And so yeah, we just see this like huge explosion in the background, and the zombies like getting about to be destroyed. And that's that Judgment from above, which of course normally in the Rider-Waite Tarot is going to be the angel coming down and bringing back the dead. So this is a really, good card for the zombie tarot that fits into that theme. Very action in that moment. So here's one that's actually one of the more basic cards, which I feel like really captures the Justice card. So we have the bones of the judge here, weighing the heart and the brain, and the heart being a little bit lighter than the brain there. So the brain being in control, kind of showing that we've gotten into this zombie scenario by letting our brains control us. And so here's another one that I think really embodies the archetype. This is the Wheel of Fortune, which is number 10 of the major arcana. And so we see it's that complete randomness of the wheel spinning, and the sideshow throwing knives, which makes it pretty funny that a zombie wouldn't be as affected by knives throwing as a regular person would. And so here we have a warning of a pretty gruesome card right here. This is the Ten of Swords, which Ten of Swords is one of the darkest cards in the tarot. And so we see this guy is being eaten by the zombies to the point where he doesn't even seem to be reacting to it. He's just kind of accepted his fate, just like the character lying down in the original Rider-Waite card. It's a nasty card there. And so here we have number 21 of the World. The World is one of my favorites along with the Fool, and if you watch my other videos you'll understand that the real order of the major arcana doesn't end with the World but ends with the Fool. So it's like that reboot kind of energy of once you get to the end of the World, then you truly are the Fool and you can see things clearly again. Yeah, so check out this World card. They've abandoned the world and they're starting a new life on the moon here. And so that's that complete freedom of transcendence that the World brings, a card of enlightenment. So if you watch my videos, you'll know that some of my favorite cards is the Mother and Father. of the tarot, meaning the earthly mother and father, emperor and empress, and then also the spiritual mother and father, the Hierophant and the High Priestess. I think this is really an amazing version of the Hierophant right here, because especially in the 1950s, now would be the internet and the phones, but the TV was a huge source of belief, and if you understand the Hierophant card, which is normally a pope figure, it is where you get your information, where you get your beliefs from the world. And so we see this, male here on the TV holding the papers just like the Hierophant does, is really a really well done interpretation of this archetype as the TV. And so on the other side of the Hierophant, we have the High Priestess, which is going to be the more mystical, like the real feeling side of things, not attached to society like the Hierophant is, but the true spirituality, not the mainstream beliefs, but the subversive, the mystical. And so we have the High Priestess is the voodoo priestess here. She's the one who can work with the zombies. She has the moon in the background, just like the original Rider-Waite version, where she has the moon underneath her foot. So she's at peace, and she can control the forces of the unconscious instead of the living like the Hierophant does. And so now we transition to the earthly mother here. It's the High Priestess, and you see that she has learned to tame the zombie, to tame the unconscious. And so this actually is kind of similar to the High Priestess, this Empress card. She is the protective, nurturing, earthly mother of the tarot. Okay, so just a few more of my favorites here. We have the Emperor, just this empowered, very masculine guy protecting his son or page right there. And he's got the weapons, he's got that face that's actually very similar expression to the classic Rider-Waite tarot, of just this like serious, empowered guy who's very, down for his business, down for his position as the protector, as the patriarchal, earthly father here. Okay, and we take a look at this Tower card here. You can see that they are safe up in the tower with the lightning striking just like in the original card. And then we see the zombies have broken through in their black and white garb right there. They've broken through and they're completely ruining their perfect tower here. And one thing I like to call the tower is originally known as the God House. And so this is the universe coming and challenging our paradigms. So here's a really beautiful sun card. This is one of my favorites in this deck, because one thing I like about this deck, like with the Judgment card, it really just encompasses that action, that moment of action where we can see that it's that moment of a zombie movie like in Dawn of the Dead, the original 70s version, where the helicopter lifts off just at the right moment. That sun coming up or setting down, that's that sun energy of that burst of light that can be the savior, but also can bring you next to your next challenge. So I like that one there. And so take a look at the Devil card here as the vice. So we see the devil on the cigarette thing, that even in and there's, you can't really see it too well, but there's the dead person with the cigarette thing and then in his hand, and then there's a face reaching from along the corner. So it's that sometimes it's the vices that get us, not necessarily the universe or the unconscious, that we kill ourselves and we become our worst enemy because of these challenges. And so when there's a zombie apocalypse, when there's challenges in your life, that's when you're going to be searching out for those vices, going down to those vices to try to fix things. Doesn't help. Alright, so the last card of my favorites here, I really like this Hanged Man. You can see the look in this face is like, oh shucks, I can't do anything about this. And he's just like completely tied up there. If you compare it to the original Rider-Waite tarot, the Hanged Man is a character who is a thief, who is strung up, so all of the money and stuff falls out from his pockets, and so he's been left there with a bullet to probably kill himself, but he's not going to do that. And so you can see that classic stance that he has of the four, like the falling man from the Twin Towers in that classic picture. This is just, I think, a really good interpretation of the Hanged Man. So yeah, I guess I would recommend this deck not as a deck for reading necessarily. You definitely can do readings with it. They may come out a little bit more crazy or negative depending on your reading style. But it is definitely an interesting art piece, especially for people who are into that like vintage nostalgia, kind of Fallout style artwork. That subversive version of the 1950s. It's really just a nice collector's piece. I can't say I do really many readings with it anymore now that I've become more proficient as a reader. I stick with 4 or 5 decks, usually actually stick with just the main Rider-Waite deck these days, giving the most clear and concise readings. But as I collect decks, I do find some very interesting ones like this, and I think it's just a fun one to have. It's a fun one to study, and it can be really valuable for like a personal introspection and doing readings for yourself because of the nature of the war between the unconscious zombies, which is going to be the more feminine dark side, and then the choice of the living humans, and that's going to be the light of the masculine side. Not that either side is good or bad, it's just showing that duality between humans. And actually, as a huge zombie fan, it is a very cool deck to have and to see how these archetypes fit together within the zombie movies, and just, you know, learning through the tarot through experience and using these different decks and having these different experiences with the tarot. So thank you for checking out the review. If you would like to check out some other videos, there's going to be some links up here. Stay tuned for some more reviews, some readings, some card meanings, and just put some requests in the comments if you'd like a certain type of video. Hit me up below in the link on Instagram for readings and email. Blessings and happy Halloween.